Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Blueprint. You're rocking with Dion.
And Felicia, and today we're going to talk about our first flip and how we separated labor and supplies. Okay, so what made us even think about separating labor and supplies? Typically, that's not something that a contractor would actually offer you, and we stumbled upon that idea from what made us suggest that.
Just in all honesty, what made us suggest that was because, with acquiring the funding that we had, that we got, we have a Lowe's card and we have a Home Depot card. So, those were two nice cards to have. So, of course, we didn't trust, especially with working with this contractor for the first time, we didn't trust just giving him our Lowe's and Home Depot card. They got thousands of dollars on there, and he might be getting stuff for himself, for other projects and stuff like that. So we don't know. So it's just a trust thing that made us be like, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and see if we can just get these supplies ourselves, instead of just giving him the card
Right.
or just paying the up cost for the whole project.
Right, yeah, that's what it was. You jogged my memory with that. So it was just being able to account for every single dime. And then also, too, we hadn't built a relationship with the contractor. So we just wanted to be on top of everything. That's how we come into this not wanting to be taken advantage of, but also wanting to learn. So as we go, we kind of know what to expect. And then when we build a relationship with the contractor, we'll feel more comfortable giving them a card maybe, but also knowing what things cost, how much supplies cost. When we presented the option we asked the contractor if he would be able to separate labor and supplies, and of course he did say that he could accommodate that. But from the start, it seemed to be a challenge for him. I think that typically they lock in the labor and supplies together. So to be honest about it, I think it's hard to be able to separate the two for multiple reasons. Number one, they really don't know exactly how you may want to customize things. So you may not want a standard faucet or a standard door. And so if they, send you a fixed quote, it may not include some of the things that you want just because there may be a pricing difference. So it's kind of, I think for this particular contractor, just kind of, he was unfamiliar with that, just not knowing how to be able to approach it.
Yeah, especially with it being, we did a full property gut. So, we gutted the living room, the kitchen, the bathroom. The only thing we didn't touch was the bedrooms. So most of the time, contractors, they just having little odds and ends jobs like remodeling the bathroom or remodeling the kitchen or something like that. But just doing a whole complete gut, a lot of times, some of them ain't doing that so often. And usually, when people doing remodeling of just a single project, a lot of times it would be good to just go ahead and get the supplies yourself, especially if you do got like a Lowe's card or a Home Depot card. And just to go left a little bit, with those Lowe's and Home Depot cards, you get perks. So like with Lowe's, if you spend $2,000 or more like that, you get a huge discount. Just depending on the specific supplies that it is, you can get up to like 20%. Sometimes I know one time we spent like $2,000 and got like $400 off at checkout, just because the perks. Home Depot do the same thing. You spend a certain amount. Got different tiers. You start getting $50 off your next purchase or whatever like that. So
That's a good point.
yeah, both of those cars have
Perks,
like perks.
cash back. And so
Yeah,
when you pay the contractor for everything, including those supplies, you won't receive that. So, you're actually getting money back that you can use, towards other projects, or it just helps to be able to cut down on the supplies, which in the end will increase your bottom line. You'll make more of a profit if you actually are able to save on the supplies. Now, just to add to that, on the flip side, sometimes the contractors, they're able to get discounted rates. So,
yep.
You may be able to get things cheaper with them versus if you are shopping at Lowe's or Home Depot.
Or not only that, A lot of times, contractors they don't mind shopping at Lowe's and Home Depot and stuff like that to get little stuff like sheetrock and little supplies like grout and stuff like that. But sometimes they like to get supplies from like wholesale distributors and stuff like that. If it's like for gutters and vinyl and other little supplies and stuff they might need for the project, they like to go to wholesale distributors because you can get things way cheaper than what you would get it at Lowe's or Home Depot. But like I said, to counter that a little bit with those perks, if you spend so much, you get those big discounts. But yeah, that's how contractors like to do.
When we initially, I guess, requested this from the contractor, the first contractor, he seemed to be able to work that in and to be able to make that work. However, he was acting as a general contractor, which means that he was just delegating tasks to other contractors. That's where I think, I don't know how that would have ended as far as them being able to get what they needed that was included in that original contract. Because we were just paying for the labor and not the supplies, but he wouldn't have known what they needed as far as their supplies, for it to actually be able to kind of work out. So in that situation, it could become where you're paying more than what they quoted you. So if you come in with a expected budget or an expected amount and they tell you, yeah, I can do it for that amount, it may not be true because they don't actually know how much you'll have to pay in the supplies because they don't know exactly what you want.
They don't know exactly what you want, or sometimes uh, they might miscalculate how much sheetrock you might need, how much paint, or how much shingles you needed for the roof. Sometimes things like that happen too as well, or you might not need as much sheetrock or tile or whatever like that, because sometimes they go off the dome with it. Uh, just trying to eyeball stuff, or sometimes they get measurements and everything like that, but sometimes the numbers can be off a little bit, but it is what it is.
So, what are some things that you would say were pros? What did you like about us separating the labor and the supplies out?
Well, for me, my whole thing was just the whole getting over on you type of thing. So, just being able to buy all the
Supplies.
supplies, ourselves, we was able to see where every dollar went. So the good thing about Lowe's, you don't have to be there with the contractor. I could just be sitting up there laid up in the bed. They'll call you, be like, "We got a phone order for you." You can just pay over the phone, and the contractor can get the stuff, get back to work. But go back to what you said, just being able to see where every dollar went, and
Because that's what counts when
yeah,
you're flipping a property.
yeah, because y'all thing is bookkeeping, bookkeeping, bookkeeping.
Hmm.
So just doing that, it helps with your bookkeeping, your budget tracker, just making sure you stay on track for your budget and everything. Yeah,
Because since you mentioned bookkeeping, if you are familiar or you've worked in corporate America, they consider that loss prevention, and they are on top of everything like a paperclip, a pencil, everything,
yeah,
and it cuts into the bottom line. So when you are able to oversee the supplies and what they buy, and like you said, whether they keeping the stuff, if they brought some paint and they didn't use but half the bucket, but then they taking it with them for the next project, that cuts into your bottom line. If
right,
you keep that bucket of paint and use it from house to house to house, that saves you money. So the bookkeeping is extremely important when you are flipping a property. This is, I think a lot of people, they kind of overlook it. They like, it's $50,000. I can just subtract that from the cost of the house. It's not that simple. It's not
yeah.
that simple.
And the thing about it too, like you said, using like a half a bucket of paint or whatever like that, when you just paying one upfront cost, when you don't separate the supplies from the labor, that's the stuff that they will be taking with them because they can always tell you like, we used it.
Yeah.
It's good to have an honest contractor too, like what we did with separating, the supplies from the labor. Everything we didn't use, he always put it to the side, tell us to go take it back to Lowe's or Home Depot, or we can store it and use it for our next project or whatever like that. But yeah, it good. it pays to have a good, honest contractor too, as well.
Right. Check. One pro for me for the process of separating the two was, of course, getting to learn. So, as being a female in real estate investing, I know nothing about a house and
No, no.
any of the terminology for any of it. So, I was able to learn a lot. I've heard you talk about joists and floors. What was the things? The
Subfloors.
subfloors and
Yeah.
all this, the shingles and what's the other thing on the that go on the roof around the roof?
Oh yeah.
All this
Soffit.
soffit,
Yeah,
all this
soffit.
stuff, and
Yeah.
to be able to put a name with the actual object,
And you got to thank Chat GPT, no?
what chat do? They do their part.
What?
Shout out to Chat GPT though.
Yeah, because Chat taught you a
What
lot.
they teach me?
So,
They helped me to do some things that we'll talk
for
about
real,
on another episode.
for real.
Designing the layout of the home,
Yeah,
but as far as rehabbing the home, I didn't really get that terminology. I think that was more hands on, and I learned that a lot during the process of us going and picking out the supplies and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Another pro for me, being on the bookkeeping, accounting, business side of things, was just getting an idea of how much things cost, how much these projects actually cost. So a lot of time in the past, we received quotes that were combined with the labor and supplies, and we try to gauge it based upon we Google or whatever, we gauge it against other contractors that give us quotes. But now to kind of have an idea of this, how much this costs, and also too, not just the actual labor, but the time to go run and get those things, because we had to do that too. So we was like, all right, now we seeing not only are they working, but they got to go run and get the supplies. You got to have a truck to be able to carry the supplies. If they don't have a truck, they're gonna have to rent a truck, whatever have you. So it's a lot more than just, showing up and painting. Sometimes you think like, all he doing is painting, but it's like, nah, he actually had to go physically get the paint, sit there and wait for them to mix the paint. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be a part of every single process to know what it entails of. So when
Yeah,
somebody gives us a price, we can kind of be like, yeah, that sound right. That sound about right. Or you getting over. You don't take all that.
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't take all that.
yeah. So another pro for me was like piggybacking on what you said, just with the hands-on, just going to be able to go get like stuff like paint, and you getting to know your paints from, cause see, I ain't know all that stuff about paint, how it worked, like the different coatings, like you got flat, you got eggshell, so these are different levels to painting from, dull all the way to the paint being shiny.
Mm-hmm.
But, we was able to go, get the paint, buy swatches, basically paint the swatches to see how they would show up, to be able to match the flooring that we got. So, like you said, just going to get supplies and stuff and matching stuff up and see how you really are bringing the house to life, you
Yeah.
know.
You
Yeah,
remember when we first went to the Lowe's and I started crying because I was trying to explain to you about the colors. And one thing that I like about Lowe's and Home Depot is that, like you said, they have the color swatches. But not only do they have the swatches, which are like samples of the colors, they have booklets that actually have a whole layout of colors that you can actually put together. So if you're somebody that's new to real estate flipping or just wanting to update your home, they make it really easy for you. They make it really easy for you. They have the layouts for you, and you can just say, hey, I like this picture right here, and then it gives you all of the swatches, and you can just pick what you want, and then they'll mix the colors for you. So when we first started, I was like, we're going to have to hire somebody because I know I can't design a home. But I was actually able to design this home with Chat
chat,
GPT. This is
yeah,
where Chat GPT
50,
come in,
yeah.
and the actual resources that they actually have in the hardware stores.
Yes, because with those resources that they have, like even with down to designing the kitchen, this whole layout. Give a shout out to Home Outlet. That's the place that where we shop to and get all our cabinetry and stuff like that. But they able to give you like, you sit down, tell them what you want, tell them the measurements. Get your contractor to give you the measurements. They're able to give you a 3D design. Basically, just mapping out the whole kitchen from putting in the refrigerator, dishwasher, cabinetry, everything, lining up everything to the T. So, that's another thing that you get to learn and, get help with.
Yep.
during the process,
Yep. So if you're new to real estate, you're thinking about getting into real estate, and you may be thinking, well, I don't have the money. I'm not going to be able to pay somebody to be able to design this layout. What we'll let you know is that you can go in and they actually make it very user friendly for the first time flipper, first time, rehabber, or if you're just renovating your home. Don't overthink it. They have tools, they have resources to make it very, very simple for you. And it will look really, really good.
Yeah, because how did you use ChatGPT as far as decorating our
For designing our
kitchen?
home.
Yeah.
So one thing we have mentioned in previous videos is home rehab shows and home renovation shows. So I started out there, HGTV, just watching them renovate homes, update the homes, and then from there that kind of gave me an idea of what to look for and what I wanted. And then I would go into Chat GTP and upload pictures of the actual home. So in the state that it was currently in, put those pictures in, and then tell it what I wanted. And then it would actually design it for me. And then when we went into the stores, then I could tell them what we were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just, step by step by step. But I had resources to be able to help me. I also use Google as well. Um, and sometimes, I mean, I spent hours to be honest about it. People that do this and have been doing it is really simple for them. I guess they already kind of have that blueprint, so they have something to, a couple of different models that they can build from. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, we started from the ground, so I had to spend hours, trying to figure out what I want, certain ways things would work. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes, you may have a layout that has a microwave and then a stove. But then remember we was thinking about putting that thing above the stove, the
Oh, the
exhaust
exhaust
fan.
fan. Yeah.
And so you guys see how that can work. So you have to be able to kind of make those changes. And thank God for Chat GPT, because prior to that, I guess you would just either have to know what you were doing, or
Pay the upfront cost and let the contractor
or yeah,
do it for you.
or a designer. But now,
Yeah.
honestly, they make it really, really user friendly. Anybody, like a fifth grader, could
Mm,
design a home. To be
yeah.
honest about it.
And remember your schemes and stuff, or remember your layouts basically that you choose and you pick, because you can carry it to your next project. So, remember the colors you did for the wall, the flooring, and stuff like that. You can stick to that stuff. You can change stuff up too, but a lot of times, just having just remembering those layouts and stuff, it'll make it easy for the next project too as well.
Let's talk about the cons, if any, of separating the two.
So, a con would be, I must say off the bat, if you're a person that works or have extracurricular activities, kids and stuff like that, separating the two could be a major con. Just because you might not have the time to always pick up the phone when Lowe's call or your contractor call, or you might not always be able to go get supplies and stuff like that. So that's going to be your first major con right there, is just being able to have availability to separate supplies from the labor. So that's a big con,
Yeah,
start,
major.
major con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I would think a con of it, why to kind of, I guess, conflict with what we just said, is going overboard. I feel like you would be more in a budget if they take care of it versus when you're actually going in and you're looking at things. Oh, I want this towel, or I want to get this faucet. And I was shopping online, and like I said, I would be looking on Google, and they would have that gold look with the gold trimming and the gold faucets, and I'm like, I want to get that look.
Hmm.
And so you could kind of go over budget when you're doing it yourself, because it's just like it's no stopping versus when you pay them. They get what you can afford, basically what you giving them. I'm not gonna say what you can afford, but what you giving them.
Yeah.
You
So if you
know,
tell them $50,000, they're gonna get what's within that budget.
right? Yeah,
So, and depending on that budget, sometimes stuff might be very basic.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
just
it
doing
just
that.
depends on what you're wanting to do. If you wanting to keep it basic, by all means, go that route with the contractor, because they will keep it basic. But if
Or
you,
I ain't gonna just say they keep it basic. I mean, they can get nice stuff too, but just knowing that, like you said, it could be the basic. Like she said, the gray, the white, regular silver doorknobs, stuff like that, basic lighting and stuff.
And don't get me wrong, most contractors, they will sit down with you and they'll give you samples and they'll
They
let you.
should sit down with you.
Yeah.
They supposed to sit down with you.
Right.
Asking you basically what you want, what's your completion date, just all different type of things to be able to get the project done. And from there, get you a quote, how much on everything's going to cost and when they'll be able to have everything done. And they should, go ahead and get all the supplies and stuff that they need, to get the job done.
And get you a contract. Get you a contract and make sure that it's very detailed, very, very detailed, about everything that you could think of that you want done, how you want it done in detail, what time of day you want it done, everything, how you want everything done.
Yeah.
Because there can be
some roadblocks in there. Yeah, it'd be some roadblocks.
Yeah, and misunderstandings. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. Excuse me, that was another headache though. Just going to get stuff and might not get enough of it, or having the wrong size, or getting the wrong thing. And, that was.
But you got to learn, and there's no value. There's no price tag that can ever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you learn it, so now you know, and move.
Just keep you some ibuprofen on you, because you're gonna need it. Especially sometimes me and the contractor bump head. I be like, you said this size, now I gotta go back and get this size, or now you said this many, now you going to get you going to get it the next time, stuff like that. But other than that, yeah, that's about it. Getting the first one under your belt will really help you from then on out.
Right.
Yeah, getting that first one under your belt, just knowing all different type of supplies that you need to, do a kitchen, to do a bathroom, to paint walls, to take up floor and put flooring back down. You get through that first one, you pretty much, like she said, the next one it'll be more smooth,
So with all that being said, on our next flip, would you want to separate labor and supplies? Or would you want to do the standard way of just paying them for everything, paying the contractor?
So the next time, I would like to do it the standard way just because of the efficiency. Not only the efficiency, but just kind of just being able to compare and contrast the two. So just to see, how it would work out, because even though you can pay an upfront cost, you can still tell the contractor itemize each project. So if I go into a flip and the things I need done may just be new roof, the bathroom, flooring, paint, kitchen, windows, telling them to itemize each project, because you can kind of know now, since you didn't separated the supplies from the labor, you'll know like, okay, he charging me $8,000 for a bathroom that's only 400, 500 square feet. Let me see. Okay, this how I want the shower, the tub, the vanity, this, that, and the third. Now I know, like, okay, that might be on a little high side, or I might be like, oh, that's pretty good, So you can still always ask for an itemized breakdown of the quote.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, a lot of times, contractors don't have time for all this, some of this stuff that you ask for. They don't have time to be sitting up there. Some don't have time for no contract.
It's just they one man showing and they very hands on, and the business and the back end goes lacking.
Yeah, so they might be like, oh, itemize, man, come on, I can do the work. Don't worry about that. I'm gonna get it done.
Yeah, you making it worse for the next. Yeah. What you saying is going to make it even worse. It was already hard enough just to get a contract and a quote for most of them. Hell, them to show up was half the battle, because some of them show up, some of them you follow, they won't follow back up, all of that.
Yes, that can happen. Once again, thank God for a good contractor, and two, he had an army. Mm-hmm. He had an army.
And with that being said, he wanted to be paid for that army too. So this can kind of go into this different episodes, but when you working with a one-man show, he may not be able to get the job done as quick. But if you get an army, they can get it done quicker, but they're gonna charge more.
Because some contractors like to be paid differently. You know, some like you can put them on salary. Some of them you can give them chunks, you know, of money, you know. But like she said, that's for a different show, different time, different date.
So if you're thinking about investing in your first flip, would you do it this way where you separate the labor and supplies, or would you just let the contractor take care of everything? Let us know in the comments. Check out more footage of our first flip. We want to give a shout out to our contractor as he worked patiently and diligently with us as we separated the labor from the supplies. He trusted the process even though we did not know what we were doing. Everything came out perfectly. We hope you enjoy and continue to watch and subscribe.